I'm Mike,
And I'm Amber. Welcome to the Covenant Chronicles,
where we tell you the truth about relationships.
giving you the tools to build the foundation you always needed. Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Covenant Chronicles.
What's going down? No, I'm just kidding. We are back again. Many of you might remember, the Men in Black theme song. I'm about to start going down that road, but maybe I'm dating myself too much here. Anyways, on that note, we were talking about what we wanted to discuss, and I think internal conversations is a good one. It's a really important one because, regardless of how you look at things, right? Your mindset is the one place that psychology, science, religion, all of it all intersects, right? And shaping your reality based on your mindset is something that most people, I don't think, understand fully. And I don't think that people understand the depth in which you actually control things around you simply based on your mindset. And it all starts with those internal conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've talked about it before. And when you're talking about, I guess if you follow any sort of influential people online or coaches or, if you read the Bible or whatever you're looking at, they all talk about these mindset things, right? But I don't think people really grasp it and really comprehend it to the level that they need to.
Mm-hmm.
And to the extent that those conversations that you're having with yourself, down to the stupidest things, or the silliest things that you don't even recognize or realize are influencing you. We talk about it all the time, with Jamin and with our men's group, and we discuss it on a regular basis about how even saying, I'm so dumb, you're writing something down or you're doing something on your computer and you make a mistake and you go, oh, I'm so dumb, right?
Yeah.
But your mind can't actually tell the difference between what's reality and what's fiction. Your subconscious can't, at least, right? So on the surface, we think, oh, it's not a big deal. But you say that often enough, and your mind actually will start looking for evidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reticular activating system, it's basically the same reason why you buy a certain color car and all of a sudden you start seeing that car everywhere, right? But here's why that's important in relationships, right? So maybe especially guys, right? You hear this a lot, like especially if you're, in some job where maybe a bunch of guys get around for their lunch break,
Mm-hmm.
or they're sitting in the break room, drinking their coffee first thing in the morning on a Monday morning. And, oh, my wife's nagging me. My wife's this, my wife's that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, those same guys are the ones that are unhappy in their marriage, right?
Yeah.
And it has to do with that conversation that they're telling themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the internal conversations they're having with themselves. And when they're having these conversations and complaining, right, it's not just about what you say to other people, but it's what you say to yourself.
Right.
Because when you sit here, and I even told you at one point, I did it in our relationship and I got the results that from the conversations I had inside of my own head, when we would have struggles and you would want to fix things, I would tell myself at times, man, she is so annoying because she just leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And what's crazy is we didn't have good communication at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We struggled to problem solve, and we struggled to get through these disagreements or times of hardship. Even if it wasn't a disagreement, it was just a hard time in life. Instead of working together, we became adversaries a lot. And just changing the simple conversations inside of my own head saying, hey, she loves me so much that she cares and she's wants to be my partner and my teammate in solving this. And she's not trying to bug me. She's trying to be there and do what she can to help.
Right.
Change the way we interacted, the way we work through things. I mean, it had a huge effect on our relationship by changing that.
Right.
And, I don't know how to impress enough or really beat it into people's heads of like those conversations, that the simple things that you tell yourself will either destroy your relationship or that soil will be watered and
Hmm.
it will grow your relationship.
Well, even on like, I think it was maybe the second podcast that we did now, but you were talking about how, you know, trauma can affect you in the sense of like your partner telling you that you're annoying over and over and over again over years and years of it happening. But really, it's the same thing because your partner might be saying or telling you you're annoying, but you start telling yourself that, right? And in the same way as like your partner telling you that you're annoying, like your brain can't distinguish it to the point of like knowing that you aren't, right? Like you have to be the one that verbally has that conversation inside your own head to be like, I know I'm not annoying. I know this, like claiming ownership of your own thoughts in your head in order for your brain to really understand that those things are true and not what you're being told or what you're telling yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is a big thing that I think a lot of people really don't grasp or understand. Because I don't know that we're really ever like taught that the things that you say to yourself matter or make a huge difference. And I think a lot of us um, grow up being so influenced by the world and the world view of things that we really start having really poor internal conversations from a young age. We get this idea that like, oh, everyone says that we have to be pretty and we have to be skinny and we have to be smart and we have to be all of these things. And as kids, we start having this really poor internal conversation like, I'm not smart enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not, all of these things all the time. And I think that's why so many teens and young adults struggle with depression and anxiety so badly is because we are getting these influences from the world telling us that we're supposed to be certain things, and it just automatically triggers this I'm not good enough. And we start down that rabbit hole in our brains and not realizing what we're actually doing, not realizing the influence that we're having on ourselves and how we see ourselves, and therefore how the world sees us
Mm-hmm.
and how we are portrayed to others. And so I think that it's a really important thing for people to understand because it really can completely change how you view yourself, how the world views you, and then getting down to how your relationship runs and how you view each other in relationship. Because it is something too where we do start having these internal conversations about our partner as well. And you, because your brain can't distinguish it, starts to believe all of these things that you are telling yourself about your partner. They might not even be remotely true,
Hmm.
but if you're sitting there in your brain constantly saying, oh, he never does these things, he never listens to me, he never does the laundry, like it can be the simplest things, but if you tell yourself this enough, you start finding evidence of it, right? And then your brain just believes it.
Yeah.
So you've literally created this whole thing, which really probably wasn't actually a thing. But because you were saying it in your head, because you saw the evidence, now it becomes real to you.
Well, and what's so interesting, right, is like a lot of people that listen to this will probably just say, oh, this is just another person or couple or whatever talking about, say nice things or this and that and how it affects it. But what's crazy is I want people to not take our word for it, right? Go start looking at science, scientific studies on neuroplasticity,
Mm-hmm.
how it affects your brain, right? And the facts that when you have positive self-talk, and you talk about yourself in a positive manner, and you talk about your spouse in a positive manner, and you have these positive internal dialogues, right? I mean, it literally releases dopamine, it releases serotonin, um, it activates your prefrontal cortex,
Mm-hmm.
right? It does all these things that are physical chemical reactions inside of your brain. And over a longer period of time, can actually change like the pathways, right, inside of your
Right.
brain.
Right.
And the opposite can happen with negative self-talk, right? It'll actually start releasing higher levels of like cortisol,
Mm-hmm.
right? And creating these other situations. And then they've actually found that in these studies where people's neuro pathways close off
Mm-hmm.
due to prolonged negative self-talk,
Right.
right? And so people, when we're talking about it, it's not just a, hey, oh, you have to be the best you can be, so talk about yourself kindly, right? Like this isn't just a, hey, let's take this lightly. You're physically changing your brain's chemistry by how you talk to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
I'm not a doctor. Don't take my word for it. Go do your own research. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and that's the thing, and all the evidence is out there. And then what's funny is it's one of those things that you can't avoid, right?
Right.
Because, well, if you believe in science, go do your own research. It's all there on the way it changes, your neural pathways. If you are, a believer
Mm-hmm.
and you have a strong faith,
Mm-hmm.
there's a ton of scripture that talks about, what's in your heart, what's in your mind, what comes, out of your mouth,
Right.
right? I mean, it's funny because, in Leviticus, one of our favorite verses, when they talk about, modern church loves to say, hey, well, you can eat whatever you want because, this verse right here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you go read through that whole chapter or the whole page and you don't just say, okay, well, I want to eat what I want, so I'm going to take this one little verse in here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's literally, Jesus is talking about, it's basically not what you put into your mouth, but it's what comes out of your mouth,
Right.
right? And it's just so interesting to me that we take it for granted nowadays, and so many people take these things for granted, and this culture we live in has created this situation where they create these negative internal conversations, like you said, in the society we live in. And they wonder why people are so, suppressed, and why relationships have such a high failure rate, and marriages have such a high failure rate, and divorce is so common nowadays. And when you look at that and you look at the fact that, me telling myself, oh, I'm so dumb on a regular basis, right?
Mhm.
Even if I mean in a joking manner, will quite literally change the chemistry in my brain. What are you doing when you're married to your partner for 5, 10, 15 years? And at year 5, you start going, man, they never listen to me,
Mhm.
right? Oh man, they they don't care about me,
Mhm.
right? And then you take it a step further and you start saying, well, I don't deserve love,
Mhm.
right? And then you start going down that rabbit hole,
Yeah, that's a big one.
right?
Yeah. I think that happens a lot, and I do think that tends to come from childhood, but also just probably relationships that weren't great to begin with for a lot of people, but the whole, like, "I'm not deserving of love" is a big one for a lot of people, and they tell themselves that, and then it plays out in their life. It's not like they're walking around telling people, like, "I'm not deserving of love," but the way that you handle your relationships and the things that happen inside your relationships tell other people that that's how you feel, right? And just, as simple as the way that you show up in your relationship, if there's someone really trying super hard to show you love and you just continuously, like, block it out and shut down and become avoidant, like, that's signaling that you actually believe this conversation that you've had in your head. So, and that happens a lot, I think, where obviously we're not sitting here telling everyone the conversations that we're having in our heads, but we do show up in that manner in which we talk about ourselves. So, you know, that is a really big thing when it comes to relationships and the internal conversation that you're having with yourself about who you are, what you deserve. And if you're telling yourself, like, I'm undeserving of love, or I don't deserve to have needs, I don't deserve to have whatever it is that I want in a relationship, like, that's what you're going to go out seeking. Whereas if you start having these conversations with yourself that are actually positive and you praise your partner in your head all the time, maybe it's not, maybe it isn't even true, right? But if you started having these conversations where you looked for all of these positive things about your partner, or you started just speaking them into existence within yourself, the same thing as you finding evidence towards the negative stuff, you're going to start finding evidence towards the positive stuff too,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how your brain works. You look for the things that you tell yourself, even if you don't realize that you're doing it. So if
Mm-hmm.
you started having these conversations with yourself and you're like, man, my partner is amazing at listening to me, and my partner is so helpful around the house, and my partner is an amazing dad, is an amazing husband, is, there's a million things that you could just simply start telling yourself, but you're going to start seeking out and finding evidence of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And it could drastically change your perception of your partner and your relationship in the process.
Yeah, I think an important, I guess, caveat or note to that would be the influence of belief on it, though, right?
Mm,
Like, if we've been telling ourselves for so long that our partner doesn't listen to us, right? It's kind of like the, oh, the affirmations thing,
Mhm.
right? Because without belief, those affirmations are useless, right? We've had this talk where, you know, probably a ton of people out there that we know or that are listening have all tried these affirmations, and they're like, man, I did this for 6 months, I did this for a year, and it didn't do a darn thing in my life, right?
Mhm.
But there's a difference between belief behind it and just saying words.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And when you do that, changing those internal conversations, I think it's important to note that it's baby steps. It's not just everything all at once you have to change
Right.
without belief, you know, and maybe that thing is not, hey, my partner's amazing at listening to me, right? That's the goal. But my partner hears this one thing, right? Because even if you think that they don't listen to you, there's one thing that you can find somewhere that they've heard, right?
Mhm.
You on. And maybe that one thing is the thing that you say, you know, my partner's good at listening to this one thing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Or if you've been telling yourself, oh, they're whatever it is, right? Whatever, they suck at giving me attention or they suck at being present,
Mhm.
right? Well, what's the one that one time that you felt, right? Because you don't typically in relationships, that isn't where they started, right? They didn't start sucking at all of this. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have been with them, right? Like you would
Right.
have been
Sure.
out of the relationship a long time ago. So, what was that time that they were good at, right?
Mhm.
And you go back to that and you reference that as your belief system to say, I know my partner can do this because they've done it.
Mhm.
They're not doing it right now, okay? But they've done it,
Mhm.
right? So my partner is good at listening to me, right? Because the thing about identity with these internal conversations is it's not about your past, right? Everybody wants to sit here and say, well, you know, my partner, and they want to get into this negative spiral, but you're not the person you used to be either,
Yeah.
right? I mean, at the end of the day, everybody can sit here and say, oh, well, my partner doesn't, or my partner is this, my partner is that. Okay, but you're not the person they got with either.
Yeah.
I promise you, you're not,
Mhm.
right? So, but are all the places, you know, that you're failing in now, is that your identity? Or are all your positive things that you did and that occurred in your initial part of the relationship, is that who you are,
Mhm.
right? And having that conversation of identifying, okay, well, I'm not doing these things either,
Yeah.
but that's not who I am. I'm this person, right? And having that conversation with yourself of, you know, oh, I am fun. I do like this. I am like this,
Mhm.
right? And then doing the same with your partner.
Yeah.
They are like this. I know this is who they are. And you start, like you said, you start changing that dialogue and you start in these baby steps and you keep going. And before you know it, right? Like, I mean, our relationship is always developing and it's always growing. But I mean, at the end of the day, I want to say it was probably only took a few months. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before everything was like drastically different inside of our relationship.
Mhm. For sure. Yeah, it really didn't take super long when we both made changes within ourselves.
Hmm.
And I think being able to identify those things and trying to start change them. I also think like a big part of this is really rooted in faith too, because
Mhm.
when you start to identify like Galatians 2:20.
Oh,
We
here
laugh
we go.
about this because
Jamin, are you listening? Start the
it's
count.
it's kind of a inside joke with us, but like when God lives in you, like you change who you are and what your internal conversation when you realize like who he says you are and you
Mhm.
start showing up in that way,
Mhm.
it can really change all of your internal conversations as well. And I think that piece is kind of missed sometimes because it's like, do we want to, talk about God and, all of that? But like, truly, when you and I actually started believing that, I think really changed so much for both of us.
Mhm. It's about putting something higher than yourselves, right?
Mhm.
And having that belief in you aren't number one,
Mhm.
right? And having that faith, and that's where that internal conversation starts, right? And stems from of like, if you it's easy to have a negative internal conversation in our head because we think no one's listening,
Mhm.
right? But would you go out and say a lot of these things to someone else,
Right.
right? Like, would you walk up to somebody on the street and tell them all the things you say to yourself? Probably not,
No.
right?
No one
And
would.
if you're a believer, you darn sure aren't going to have a prayer, where you're talking to the man upstairs and you're saying all these things you say about yourself, right?
Mhm.
But when you take that to heart and you understand that of who he is in you and who he's called you to be, well, now you realize I'm not saying those things necessarily to myself anymore,
Right.
right? But you it's so easy to let the world tell you differently,
Mhm.
right? And to let the world really guide your internal conversations,
Mhm.
right? And when you think about it, I mean, when you have that understanding of, these conversations can quite literally change the chemistry inside of your body for better or worse,
Mhm.
right? And it's not us making it up, right? It talks about it in the Bible. It talks about it in science. There's
Mhm.
studies in science, and we've lived it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's not like us just throwing stuff out there that, like, well, this sounds good,
Yeah.
right? We've lived it. And I think if more people understood that and really could wrap their mind around that and how important that is, they wouldn't do it,
Yeah.
right? You'd stop having these conversations with yourself because it is going to massively change, your life either direction.
Mhm.
And if you're sitting here going, man, my life, my relationship isn't what I want it to be, well, what are you telling yourself about your relationship,
Right. Yeah.
right? It's the same thing as the I am statements. When you look in the mirror and you use I am statements, right? That's one of the most powerful things you can do if you have belief behind it.
Mhm.
And the same is true for your relationship.
Mhm.
We are, I am, they are,
Yeah.
right? It's going to change that environment. So what are you saying about it, and what environment are you creating? Because those conversations are creating that environment, whether you want to believe it, whether you don't, whether you want to keep living in denial,
Mm-hmm.
but they are.
For sure. I I think this would be a good place for us to maybe throw out some like what's something that you can work on this week to change your own internal conversation.
Hmm.
Sit da- sit down and think about just who God says you are. Who, who do you think God sees in your partner? You know, even if you're in a place where your relationship is not super great right now, like we all know that there have been times we saw really good things in our partner. And most of us like hang on to relationships forever because we see the good in people,
Hmm.
right? And we know that they can be this person that we see, right? So start there because I really think that's our way of seeing other people through God's eyes. And if we can take that and start having positive internal conversations about those things, maybe it can change your partner, you know?
Hmm.
Maybe it changes your environment, it changes you, it changes the way you see yourself, the way you see your partner, the way you see your relationship, and could just significantly impact the relationship without you really even like realizing it because these are all things that are in your head.
Well, and that's the thing. It's gonna go one of two ways, right? There's no middle ground really. You change these conversations, you change what you say about yourself,
Mhm.
you change what you say about your partner, and either you elevate yourself to a point that there's too much distance and they're not meant for you, but there's somebody else that is,
Mhm.
and you'll find that out in the future, or by you showing up differently, that is the catalyst they need to show up differently, and then it changes the relationship.
Mhm.
And before you know it, you're walking a whole different path. And, as far as an action step, write it down. Write down those I am statements about yourself.
Mhm.
And then once a day for the next 30 days, write something positive about your partner to start your day. Every day in the morning on a whiteboard, on a notebook, on a freaking sticky note,
Mhm.
I on a freaking dry erase on the mirror in your bathroom,
Yeah.
right? Like find a place to write it. I don't care if you steal your kid's crayon and write it in the back of a coloring book, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you got to do, write one positive thing about your partner every day.
Mhm.
And not just, hey, let's just make up something because I want to say something, right? Because I've also done that.
Mhm.
For a year and a half, I didn't view them differently
Mhm.
until I had belief, until I started picking that something that I knew because they were that before.
Mhm.
And then that is when it kicked in. That is when the belief happened. And you tell me that you doing that for the next 30 days, tell me you don't see them differently.
Mhm. Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. All right. On that note, guys, hopefully you can take this, something away from this. Do what we're asking. I promise you it will work. It will help you and it will elevate you and hopefully take your relationship with it.
Yeah. Until next time, guys.
All right. We'll see you.
Bye.